I recently uploaded a video on common causes of poor shifting on a bicycle, and one of the things that I mentioned was a bent derailleur hanger. And if your derailleur hanger is not too bent, you can use a Park derailleur adjustment guide. This is the Park DAG 1. I've had this one for quite a while. I think the more recent one is a DAG 2.2. Both of them work the same. A few things that I want to mention about the procedure of straightening your derailleur hanger with this tool is the procedure is for when your hanger is just a little bit bent. If you've crashed hard or had a rock hit it and it is really bent, you're gonna have to buy a new derailleur hanger. If it's bent too far, it's simply gonna snap when you try to bend it back with this tool, which leads me to the other thing that I want to mention, and that is the fact that even when doing it when the hanger is a little bit bent, there is a slight chance that it could break. Therefore, it's a really good idea to have another derailleur hanger on hand just in case that happens, and really you should always carry one with you if you're a mountain biker. I'll repeat something I said in that common causes of poor shifting video, and that is the classic symptoms of a slightly bent derailleur hanger. First of all, you can oftentimes eyeball it and see if it's slightly bent. If you can't eyeball it, but you're still getting some shifting problems, the classic symptom is that you'll get the derailleur shifting well at one end of the cassette, for example, in the upper range, but then when you go back down to the lower, then it's out of adjustment. You'll adjust it down here, and then when you go back up to the upper range, it'll be out of adjustment up here. So now let me show you how to straighten your hanger with the tool. The first thing that we need to do is remove the rear derailleur, and that is done with either a 5mm Allen wrench, if it's Shimano, or if it's a newer SRAM, it could be a T30 Torx wrench. So shift down into the smallest cog, and then loosen the bolt inside. So as we're doing this, you can just let the derailleur kind of just dangle down here. Now we're going to put the tool in the derailleur hanger, and be real careful that you don't cross thread. So as with any kind of bolt that you put in anything, if there's any resistance, hesitate, back off, and then do it again. This doesn't have to be that tight, just snugly up against the rear derailleur hanger. So we're going to measure and possibly straighten the rear derailleur hanger on the horizontal plane first, and then the vertical plane. And the way that we're going to measure is where this part of the tool touches the rim. And you always want to use the same part of the rim on all of your measurements. That way you're taking out any other variables, such as the rim being out of true. And therefore, I always recommend using where it contacts near the valve stem. So we're going to loosen this knob of the tool, and then that way this part can slide back and forth. Then slide this forward so it makes contact with the rim. And then we're going to tighten this knob. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move the tool on the other side of the rim and see if it makes contact without having to slide this part out. Now the thing is, when you're measuring the horizontal plane, typically you're going to have to go inside the triangle, and when you move this tool around, it's going to hit. And so you can use the newer ones have, I think, an O-ring. I've either lost the O-ring or this one didn't come with it. So I have a little rubber band to kind of mark exactly where I want the position of this slider. And so when I loosen the knob, I know exactly where to put it back. So I'm going to loosen the knob, slide this out, then I'm going to move the tool over to the other side, make sure it doesn't hit your frame, and you want to go 180 degrees, so right on the other side. Remember, I'm going to use the same spot of the rim, so I'm going to move the wheel over, and then I'm going to slide this back in and see if it makes contact in the same place. So I've got a little bit of a gap here, and Park says that the gap should be no more than 3 millimeters, and you can measure that by taking a 3mm Allen wrench and see if you can get it in there. I would say that's about 4 or 5 millimeters, so I'm going to do a slight bend and move the derailleur hanger over this way just a little bit. You'll want to slide out this part just a little bit while you bend it so it doesn't push up against the wheel. I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure and try to bend the derailleur hanger just ever so slightly. Now I'll take another measurement. I'll have to reset my rubber band because it did move a little bit. The derailleur hanger moved. So now I've taken my measurement, actually starting from the other side, And over here, I've got a very tolerable gap. I'd say that gap is probably about 2 millimeters. So I've got this thing adjusted okay for the horizontal plane. Now when you're doing this, you're gonna have to slide this back and forth to make contact on the rim on both sides, because as you can see, the derailleur hanger is not perfectly centered. So it's going to be less of a distance from here to this side of the rim than from the center of the tool over to this side of the rim. So again, you're going to have to slide this back and forth as you move it from one side of the rim to the other. So now that I've got the derailleur hanger straightened on a horizontal plane, I'm going to check the vertical measurement. So we'll use the exact same procedure, and it's a little bit easier to measure the vertical because we don't have to slide this back and forth to get it around the frame. You might have to slide it a little bit, but not as much. So I'm going to check it right at the valve stem, get the O-ring or the rubber band in place, and then let's check it on the bottom. Now here, I can't even make contact on the outside of the rim. It touches the inside of the rim. So I definitely am going to have to push the tool out and bend the derailleur hanger out a little bit. Now I'll take another measurement. I've got to go a little bit more. So this is my gap now, and that is a very tolerable limit because that is less than 3 millimeters. And if I wanted to try to check it with my 3 millimeter Allen wrench, I can't get that between this part of the tool and the rim. The last thing that you want to do is check 3 points. You want to check here, here, and here. So I'm going to do that with the tool. And again, just make sure my gap is less than 3 millimeters for all 3 of those points. And you will have to slide this back and forth, again, because the center point of the derailleur hanger is not the center point of the actual wheel. And so I'm good on all 3 of those points. They're all within 3 millimeters. Now that I'm done, I'm just going to remove the tool and then reinstall my rear derailleur. When you are reinstalling your rear derailleur, make sure this little guide here clears the little stop on the derailleur hanger. So you've got to make sure you just move it back far enough as you're putting it in so that clears. And just like when installing the derailleur adjustment guide, make sure you don't cross thread your rear derailleur as you're putting it into the derailleur hanger. And then finally, just shift through the gears and make sure they're shifting okay. You may have to adjust your rear derailleur, and I'll link my video of how to adjust a mechanical rear derailleur below so you can know how to do that. So that's how you adjust your rear derailleur hanger with the Park derailleur adjustment guide. As you can see, it's not a real complicated procedure, and this tool is about $75. If you're a mountain biker, I think it's a pretty good investment because this is something that can save you a lot of time and frustration over the years. Any questions or comments that you have about this, drop those below. Thanks for watching.